Hello, beautiful, amazing ADHDers and allies of ADHDers. Welcome to the ADHD Roundtable. This is our 15th episode. I'm so excited. If you are new, and this is an open roundtable discussion about ADHD to bring normalcy to neurodiversity while engaging in deep conversations and having fun. So welcome in. If you have any questions and you're live with us, feel free to put them in the chat. If you're not, please feel free to put them in the comments and I will get to them as I see them. Okay, so my first question to all of you today is what is your current favorite thing about your flavor of ADHD? What do you love about your flavor of ADHD?
My side quests. I love a good side quest. And I have to say the tangents are like really like my juice of life. And I really enjoy being with people who can flow with the, the randomness of how my life unfolds, even in a conversation, the like ways in which it turns. And cleaning my home has been the most hilarious experience this last little bit because I'll have like 850 things done. And it used to really get to me. And now I'm in this place of like, actually, my life is like this crazy random adventure because of my side quests.
Yes, I love that so much.
I'm trying to not reveal what I've been doing. I I got these whiteboards, these double-sided whiteboards. And then I have like many lists, as I'm sure many of us have. But my favorite time is each morning at some point, I will look at everything and organize stuff and decide what am I going to do today? What am I going to do tomorrow and the next week and the next week? And I just move stuff around. And usually I have this sort of just today or just the next few hours on a whiteboard. And if I'm a little more organized, I will kind of just trust. I call it trust future Giaco. And that'll help me just kind of relax in the moment. So organizing my list in the morning is just, it feels like meditating. It's so nice.
Yeah, so you showing the blank boards, like I had this moment of like watching you going like that would give me such satisfaction to be like, and now?
And I can do like one. Sometimes I'll literally just erase stuff before I finish it, so I can imagine myself finishing it, and then I'll have to write it down again. Um, yeah, it
One of
helps.
my one of my favorite things my niece does is when she writes a list of to-dos, she puts at the top, write list of to-dos, so she can cross it off
Yeah,
straight away. And I was like, damn, that is beautiful. Like you're winning just as you begin. It's so freaking cool. I'm really excited about this whiteboard situation. I have to say, like I have multiple giant whiteboards in my room. Like there's something about being able to visually see and prepare it all. And then there's something about also my brain that then like I'll create the most amazing plan and then that's gone.
yeah,
Hmm.
It's
yeah.
wild.
It's something about the whiteboard where I go, okay, I won't have time for that or that, but so it's just nice and quick. Also, these are so small. Like, I don't know if you can really tell. Like, I can fit that in a tiny bag. I don't need a big bag for it.
I need them. I love whiteboards.
I got them off Timu, so you do have to tackle stuff to get them.
I have a massive one right there, and I have one on my fridge, and I have a portable one I bring with me to events to teach people stuff. But I need some mini ones.
I originally got them to DM or GM D&D. So I would give each person these, and then they'd write their name on one side, and then they would like write answers to stuff or like try to solve puzzles on the other side.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. Okay, I just want to point out I'm really excited about um, both of what you guys shared. There's an element of like accepting yourself as you are. That's just really beautiful and something that I love to talk about here on the roundtable because a lot of ADHDers struggle with that like concept of well, I'm not like how I'm supposed to be, or I'm not good enough yet, or I'm always late, or I'm not consistent. Um, so what are your thoughts about consistency?
Yeah, I honestly I feel like there's a time and place for consistency that's really important. But the biggest part, especially for me in like where I have grown to in learning to love myself where I am, I think honestly the biggest thing we've ever done is define the worst thing we've ever done is define normalcy. Everybody's nervous system is different, everybody's brain is different, and we fucked it up by saying everybody fit under this curve and then you're okay. And if you're outside of that, it's not, because every single person has different layers there. And it's like being okay. My consistency is catching myself and being loving and kind to myself. So if I'm like, hey, I'm committed to do this thing for the next 14 days and I miss a day because of whatever has happened in my life, the consistent thing that is the most important for me is to be like, oh, okay, you missed a day. That's cool. It doesn't mean anything about me. Like, let's get on the bandwagon again tomorrow. Because in the past, I would have been like, oh, I'm the worst person ever. Like, throw everything out. Like, let me go on a downward spiral into all the things. So it's like, it's the consistency of holding myself in what I'm doing and holding myself with love and reverence is more important to me than anything else. And it's crazy because it's in that I've had so much, like I'm able to be more consistent all the time because I'm always holding myself. And if things go, like if my life is crazy, I've got 5 children, I've got 4 dogs, legit. One of them just had 4 puppies. Like I hold 2 businesses. I it's wild. And it's the love for myself that has been the biggest thing in being consistent in that, and it spills over everywhere.
I love that.
I've been doing this thing lately of sort of a philosophical idea of a sphere of influence. So I basically, the core of my sphere of influence is myself and my health. And then the next thing is my room. And then for me, the kitchen, I spent most of my time in the kitchen because I love to cook.
Mm.
But like, here, I'll just draw a little thing here.
He's got those awesome whiteboards.
You could just
So like, this would be my sphere of influence, so to speak, where I'm the core and then my room, but these aren't necessarily part of my sphere of influence, but work is, and my partner's, there's my partner's apartment. Like I would draw that out and kind of conceptualize that. So my consistency comes from keeping my health in check. So that starts with like breathing clean air, deep breaths through the day, and drinking a lot of water. And like if I'm losing track of things or I'm starting to get inconsistent, or instead of beating myself up, I go, okay, wait, let's start from the beginning, the core, and then work outwards, right? Like, am I messing up at work and stuff? Well, maybe tomorrow I throw out the to-do list and clean my room if I can.
Hey, I'd love to ask you something about that because I definitely noticed, Giaco, like the more I am in my consistency, the more I've noticed the physical environment. I want to be like I feel like this whole last 6 months has been like a redo, like a rebirth of myself in such a potent way. But it's also like flowing into my physical environment where I'm like, okay, I need to like reorganize that whole thing. Like half of that shit has to go. Like, there's so much in that, and coming home and I'm like, oh, I need to do this thing, but first I need to vacuum and mop all the floors. Like it's sometimes it's a coping mechanism of running away, but it's I have to admit that like the tidiest my house is ever is when something is due. And um there's also like this reverence that's happening with my space and where I am, that's happening as I'm holding myself that way.
Yeah,
Do you
I
find like
might
this?
like, there was one day I was sweeping the living room, and I mentioned to my roommate sort of offhand, once my break is over, I'll get back to editing my story, because I'm a fiction writer. And she's like, this is a break? And I'm like holding 2 things I'm about to bring down to storage and like a table and stuff. And it's, well, I'm like, yeah, yes, it is. Like today, since I have something, like you were saying, I have something due, I have something I have to do. My break is cleaning because that is what's calming me down. Because if I sit still and don't do anything, I'm just gonna start shaking and getting nervous and not be able to. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the
There's
things that I found so interesting, I've taught on the fact that there are 7 types of rest. And I think a lot of people have this concept that you have to be like sitting still and like just eating to be chilling, and to be resting. But actually, like, rest looks very different depending on what you need rest from. So if you need mental rest, oftentimes people will do physical activity. Or if you need like uh spiritual rest, or um physical rest, or like there's different types of rest, but it depends on what you need rest from is what will a break will look like.
Right. So me sitting at my computer, the rest looks like cleaning my house or taking a walk or even exercising. And then if I'm like working in a kitchen on a line, my rest looks like sitting on a milk crate in the back
Yes.
in silence, finally.
removing all stimulation as much as possible. But 100%. I like, honestly, and I feel like a lot of people process their emotions and things like very differently, because the like ordering of things is often like physically is often a really like great way. Like those sort of people from a spiritual perspective, like when they do grid work, like with stones and stuff, it's a beautiful way for them to like reorganize their feelings and emotions. And I feel like that's something that I'm just like piecing this together as we're talking about what I've been doing lately. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, just wanted to mention it there. Yeah.
Excellent. Rachelle, you were talking about um bringing love into your space and loving yourself as you are. Um, this might be a really hard question, but how do you love yourself? Like, what does it look like to bring love to yourself?
It's okay. This is beautiful because it's the energy that I do things in rather than the things that I'm doing. Like there
Mm,
is like things that I'm doing. I'm creating space for myself, like actually having space to spend time with myself. Like I've had this period of like deep loneliness that's been happening in my life, and I've helped a lot of people. I feel like from a collective consciousness, like the feminine energy is really maturing, and so that she's big feelings, right? And so I had this like loneliness come up. I've been like communing with it. I've been with it. And really, it's just like a deep yearning for myself and listening to myself. And it's really hard to do with a brain that goes like 50 miles an hour and 700 different places. So it's more like being okay with all of the places, like loving, like as I'm in meditation, I will have like side quests and tangents going on and things I'm thinking about. And it's like, loving on those parts of myself, accepting those parts of myself as I'm still also doing it. Especially in my world, like I like have a very spiritual connection, and I honestly feel like our brain upgrade is so that we can have those extra sensory inputs. Like it's I am yet to meet somebody who's very connected spiritually, psychic, like sees a lot of things from other side that doesn't have what we define as ADHD, because it's really important. So it's actually more like the way I love myself is having reverence for exactly where I am.
mm, love that.
Yeah. And there's like crazy things. Like I'm on a different eating plan at the moment. And like when I'm cooking for myself, like I went and got black plates. So when I plate it up, it looks phenomenal. I'm like cooking zucchini 3 ways, like to eat one meal. Like I'm like having this love affair with food and like honoring my temple, and like it's so beautiful. And it's like similar actions that I would have been doing before, but the way I'm doing it is with like deep reverence.
You look younger.
Thanks.
Rochelle and I have known each other for what, almost 5 years?
Yeah.
Almost 5 years. I'm like, I can see it on your face. You look younger. Whatever you're doing is working. Um,
Radiant.
Giaco, how do you love yourself?
I mean, it'll sound slightly similar, most likely, but if anyone knows internal family systems or IFS, it's all about sort of maybe not compartmentalizing, but recognizing the different parts of yourself, the different personalities that are within your own self. And then I'll sit down with those parts of me and talk to them. For instance, I have a part of myself I've named Raul, who gets really like annoyed and snippy about semantics, like little differences in words and things like that. So if somebody says something slightly wrong, or if I say something and somebody misunderstands me, I'll like snap at them, and then in my head I'll be like, Raul, chill. Okay, honey, like sit in the corner. But so I was reading the book No Bad Parts, and I would recommend that. It's a really great book. And it helps you understand that some of these parts within yourself are nervous that other parts of you will sort of lash out or do stupid things or misrepresent the entire being, the self. So you have to talk to that one who's stopping the like repressed part. You have to talk to that part who's, they call a protector, and tell them to go into another room or like give them some space, so then you can speak with the one who's being repressed. So that's been a great way for me to give self-love. I wouldn't do it before a stressful shift though, because you might be acting a bit like a child at inappropriate times, and it's fine to be a child at home alone. But
I call those personas. I also name mine. There's a coaching thing that I learned through that Hendricks Institute of going through a persona interview and like getting to know the persona, and it's a really powerful exercise. I love doing that. The other thing that I have done is with many of my clients, I've had them personify their ADHD. And that has been really helpful to a lot of my clients, because they'll have a name for their ADHD and you start to picture what they wear and how they sound, and like, yeah, it's really, really fun.
well, what's yours like?
What's mine like?
Yeah.
I don't have ADHD.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a persona that is ADHD, but I have other personas, like Rachelle named my little girl. We've kind of figured that out together. Her name is Jessica. And she's really young, so she will be a little needy, but she's also really playful and joyous, and so there's a lot of things with her. That's super dope. Yeah.
It's so funny that you mentioned like the personas, because I can see mine, but she goes through different stages anyway. Like she's like off on, like I see her like off into the forest, like to find an adventure for the day. And then there's also, she slips in and she's like in full business gears, like getting it done at the same time. So it's like, I'm like, even my persona for my ADHD is multifaceted, which is beautiful.
Your ADHD persona is a superhero.
Totally. And she can transform. I love this. I love this.
Yeah.
Because there is like so many different aspects of it, right? Like there's so many different aspects of where it takes me in many different ways. Like there's a very spiritual part. Like it's why when I'm doing a reading for somebody, like I use cards because I have so many things coming through at once that it focuses on one thing. And it's helpful to like focus on one thing and then go from there. But it's like, but the cards really like not necessary. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, well, which one of the tangents will we pick to bring through for this person?
Yeah. So for anyone who's watching that doesn't know what you're talking about, what do you mean by cards?
Oh, I'm talking about like oracle cards, tarot cards, depending on what's there. If there's a lot of messages coming through, or sometimes, so when I'm getting things from the spiritual realms, like that a lot of the time the whatever's happening on the other side is trying to get me to let them know that it's them. So they're giving you all sorts of different signs and symbols and all sorts of things that you get to bring through. And then it's a way of them confirming before they like bring any messages or anything through. But there's a lot happening at once. And so it's like choosing which one will come through. Sometimes it's really easy, like they're just like right in your face, but it's not always like that. And so having something there is like, oh, and I will look at a card. Like most people will have a card. I'll give you an example. And they're going to look at the sign. They're going to look at what this is the dreamer, like what it is, like what the thing here says, and I'll take it for that. Like I'll look at that and be like, oh, the thing that stands out for me the most is this right today. Like today, it might be the tower on other days, but today it's like the light around, and that will be a message for me. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, there was a big one coming through there. Lost all train of thought. Beautiful.
Welcome to our ADHD podcast.
Yeah. Tiny sparkly things.
Oh man. I actually found some cards that have, there's a feelings deck and a needs deck that I have. And that's it just has feeling words or need words. And every time I pull them, I'm like, oh, yep, that's exactly what I'm feeling. It is so crazy. It's so crazy. So there are different types of cards for different things. For anyone who's watching, it can be really powerful to just, even I have this deck right here that's called the Impeccable Integrity Deck by Gay and Katie Hendricks. This is where I actually got my coaching certification. And I'm just gonna pull one because they're so wildly different. So it has like this beautiful picture.
Ooh.
And then it says conscious communication. My language closely matches my experience. How can I communicate in a way that closely matches my actual experience?
I love that because the picture to me doesn't look anything like any of those things that it says.
Right? That's what I love about this deck too.
I love.
The pictures are so like all over the place. So you can get all kinds of things just from the picture. Like, look, there's just a baby head.
So this is actually, that would be a really great deck for using the back of them. Would be a great way to use. I sometimes use tarot. I'll do like normal basic readings, but usually I'll use it to write novels and to write stories. So if you're like, you need some kind of inspiration for the next scene or a character decision, or you're like, oh, I think I understand what this character would say here, you know, a piece of dialogue, you just pull the next card. So you shuffle the deck before a writing session. But if anyone's interested in tarot for writing, you should read Jumpstart Your Novel or Finish Your Novel by Mark Teppo. They're great, and they're a lot, like half of each of them. Half of them are about using tarot to write.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
It's amazing.
I'm so excited by this.
I actually went to a thing on over the weekend. Some of you might not know this about me. I'm a musician. I have a background in music education. I play the flute. I sing. I've been taking voice lessons from this amazing local artist. Her name is Rain Ezra, and she hosts these things called Beat Circle. And what she does is she gets a bunch of musicians, artists, and producers in a room, and then there's a challenge. You get like everybody's names get drawn to be whatever group you're in, and so the first 5 minutes, the musician has to come up with something to put on the track with their instrument of choice. Then the producer has 20 minutes to make it into some sort of beat. And then the artists have 10 minutes to put down lyrics and song. And then the producer has 5 minutes to wrap it up. And that's it. It's like crazy. So I brought my feelings cards with me, and at one point, one of the musicians was having writer's block with writing. I was like, here, use this deck. And then she had inspiration immediately.
Right. Yeah, who knows if you're going to look at the light around the head or the tower, but whatever, just kind of spark of inspiration. The visuals are so helpful with stuff like
that. Okay, so we're already, go ahead, Rachelle.
Okay, so good.
So we're already kind of getting into who you are and what you guys do. So tell us who you are, what you do, shamelessly plug whatever thing it is that you're working on or want to share with us today.
Yeah, my name is Rachelle Raku, and I am many things. Like the the putting a label on stuff is always such a challenge for me, and I imagine that is like universal. But I'm a very spiritual woman. I help people get in touch with the truth of who they are, and I am like here to help women birth their big visions that are here that are emblazoned on their soul. Like it's the birth process is messy, it's big, and I'm like so here for it, and allowing the individual to kind of like find themselves and find their fire, and like creating space for that. And I have a 3-day challenge coming up called Ignite Your Fire. So I'll send Jessie the details of that so she can put it underneath if you wanted to come and have a look and see what's happening in my world. Yeah.
And that's like Rachelle just said, that's like a snippet of what she does. She's a very incredible human. And if you want to do a session or do a program with her, I highly encourage you to do it.
Yeah, that does sound amazing. That's great. I like trying to remember like my mission statement, so to speak. So pretty much to help creatives with business and promotion and things like that, so they can just focus on their art, focus on what they love. You know, so I've studied metadata, spreadsheets, particularly in the publishing industry, and crowdfunding, and online fandom management. So, you know, how to create a digital presence online, but particularly focused on Kickstarter and Patreon.
Very nice.
So for instance, I did a Kickstarter audit for an art book Kickstarter coming out in October. I'm about to launch my own first Kickstarter called Sea Lock Spirits. It's Miyazaki meets Moana. It's a middle grade book. It'll be about that big. Actually, I think yeah, whatever. It'll be a small little book.
Is this
that is from probably going to be the third Kickstarter. That's from Glass Waterfall.
okay? Different book.
Yes, but that is some commissioned art of one of my of a sculpture that one of my characters made. Yeah, so this one will be like a little book that you can read to your kids, or you'll enjoy reading on a sunny porch sometime. Yeah,
Very cool.
but mostly sci-fi fantasy about like people who are in between, journalists, translators, people like Jess who like help shepherd things like this and create things like this. I also work at a pub/bookstore and run events for them.
I went to a cocktail bar that was a bookstore, like a book, like library at the same time. I'm like, this is the best thing ever, especially because I was away. Like I was by myself. So I'm like, it's the best. I can have a cocktail and read any novel I pick off the wall.
Yeah, it's fun. You can like organize the books when you get caught up on food. It's called Rose City Book Pub.
Yeah.
So good.
It's amazing. I love that place. And I'm Jess DuBose. I'm an ADHD coach, and the thing I want to share with you all today is something new that I've been doing. I noticed there's like a gap with entrepreneurs where you're like got the business up and running, but you don't have enough money coming in to hire someone full time, but you need help, and then maybe you try to like hire somebody, but you spent the whole time trying to train them and it didn't really work. So I'm this person that helps fill the gap, because I have a lot of knowledge of different industries. I've worked in a lot of different fields. I also have my own business. I also understand the ADHD brain a bit, but I don't have ADHD and I'm wildly organized. And so the combination of that helps with filling that gap. So I've been working with, right now I just started this and I already have 3 clients who are doing this with me. And it looks different for each person because each person has a different business and different needs. And there's definitely never a one size fits all ever. So I am like tailoring to figure out how to help them streamline their business to create the structures that they need. And then what the goal is for me to also help them hire and train the people so that they can, like, the business can run and do the thing once it's scaling. So I'm really excited to be in business with a few people right now. So one of them has a ballroom attached to their house that has a venue. And so we're creating some systems and structures to make sure that is smooth. And then I have a client who created her own chai because she couldn't find a chai that was caffeine free. So she made a caffeine free chai. And so her business is growing as she's selling more and more chai, and that stuff is so good. I don't like chai. I'm not a person who likes chai, but her stuff is really good. It feels like it's really good for you too at the same time. So anyways, I'm helping these wonderful humans fill the gap in their business to help it grow and help you also like, and I'm helping her team too, because she understands that she has ADHD and not everybody on her team does. And so she's like, okay, how do we translate what's going on in my brain so that it's working for the whole team, but I can still be myself while also, because you don't have to change yourself in order to be the CEO or the founder or the leader, whatever title it is that you have. So I'll
Plus,
put
it would
that.
be so good having like external eyes on your business and being like, hey, like this is the part. Because I think for me, it's been like accepting myself where I am and being like, okay, this is where I fall down. Like I hired somebody to make my appointments because when I leave the app of saying like, hey, can we do this time or can we make an appointment? And I go to my calendar, like the level of ability to go onto a side quest tangent is so big for me that I will literally forget. Like there is so many things. I see my calendar, I'm like, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. It's crazy. And so I was like, as soon as I was like, instead of beating myself up about that, I just accept that that's part of who I am and hire somebody who can do that part for me. It's great. And it took me a really long time to get to that point. Whereas if I had you in my corner and you were like, hey, I'm noticing this happens. Let's create a system around that that's going to hold you through all of it. That would be handy.
Yeah, I literally had a client today who was like, well, it was the other day. I wasn't even doing much. I was sitting there watching him work on his computer. And he's like, I wouldn't get any of this done if you weren't here. I was like, yes, we're body doubling, and I'm learning how your brain works at the same time because I'm sitting here watching how you organize your computer. And that's really important for me to understand how your brain, because everybody's brains is a little different. Cool. Okay.
It's hard to look outside and like see how somebody else, for instance, with that situation, I imagine, Rachelle, it was hard for you to imagine that somebody could organize all these things in that way. And no matter how many times somebody tells you, I could do that, like there has to be some kind of, I'm always curious how that happens. How does one person realize that other people can't do that? For instance, in this case, couldn't do the organizing and keeping all those things in their head. And how do you figure out that somebody can do that thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm imagining if Jess looked at my computer and saw that there's like 30 open tabs on 7 different things, and then I've got all of my like my pages where I put notes in, or like they're all still open, she'd be like, okay, I can see where we can help you out a little bit. Because I'm really good at the macro and I'm really good at the micro, but them coming together, like I can see the connection, I can do all of that, but I'm moving so fast that I'll have like so many tabs and things open, and then in my brain's like, oh well, I have to come back to that. And literally every time I need to go back to that thing, I'll just open a new tab and search it. But for some reason, I'm like, I need to have it all there, which is like exactly how my physical environment was like, if it's all there, I know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
Like,
ADHD-friendly house. There's a lot of clear jars, plastic jars you can't see through are the bane of our existence for sure.
Yes. One of the things that I learned at the Hendricks Institute is the arc. You know, we talk about the story arc, right? You have the beginning, the middle, and the end. But the way that people do life, you're generally good at one or two of them and suck at the other. So what Rachelle just described was she's like, I know I'm good at the beginning, at the end, at that middle part. And I'm similar. I'm really good at starting things. I'm not great. I'm getting better at the middle, and the end is iffy. But I find that a lot of ADHDers struggle with the beginning part. But it depends on you and your person, and sometimes it depends on the thing. But it's really interesting to start thinking about that, and you're like, oh, well, yeah, I'm really good at this part, and I'm not so great at this other part. But we're not supposed to be good at everything.
That. And it's like finding the parts that you are good at and being like, yeah, fucking rock at that. Let me do that more often. And let me find somebody who's naturally fucking loves the other stuff. Like my VA, she loves like organizing. She loves like if I give her an idea and exactly what I want, she loves creating it. And then it's so good to find somebody who's their genius zone is the parts that I'm not as proficient at. Like I can do it, but it drains the hell out of my energy. And I'm like, it's so distracting. It takes me like 50 times more effort than it would if I was just doing the like ideation and like this is how it gets to look. Let's use these colors, this colors, and like here's the quotes I want to put in there. Like, and she just takes it from there and it's like magical and it comes back and I'm like almost like, it can be this easy. Like, what? Like, what? But it's so interesting now because I'm getting like a whole heap of stuff and I'm like, oh, now I need to find a process of like getting that ordered for everybody because it's the ordering thing for me. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll do that, but there's so much happening so fast that I have to actually create space for it.
Yeah. And
I find I'm pretty good at organizing other creatives with ADHD. I'm good at that part, but when it comes to my own stuff, it takes a lot more energy. So I'm glad I found a place where I can kind of like meditate in the morning and it feels good to organize my own stuff. Yeah.
And for those of you who are not yet in a space to be able to hire somebody, find somebody who will trade. Like if you're really good at this and that person's really good at this, help each other out. I love doing trades. I cannot wait cleaning my house. I hate cleaning. So they could come clean and I will do coaching with them. Like that is something I so desire.
Oh, I love that. I'll do that next week. Sounds great.
Okay, we'll talk.
Not that I need more balls to juggle, but like you said, it's a trade.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. What when you started learning about ADHD, what was something you were really surprised about that was like, oh, that's ADHD related? If you have something.
Hyper focusing. That's sort of like you can see all the complexity of a single thing. And once you can kind of understand all of that complexity at once, you just end up getting completely zeroed in on it. And there were so many times I was like, do I have ADHD? Do I have ADHD? I don't know. And then once I realized that that was part of it, I went, oh, I definitely do.
Yeah. So if there was somebody watching this that didn't know what hyperfocusing was, how would you describe it?
I think the best way to notice it within, like if you do it and you notice it happening to you, I think if you're not used to noticing it, the first thing you'd notice is dampening senses. So other senses, whether it's touch, hearing, or even like some blurred vision, that will start happening if you're focused on one thing. So like, I used to play trumpet in a jazz band. And when I got really into like a song and I was really focused on the whole band as a whole and the sound of it, my vision would start going blurry. And I thought I had smudged glasses. But then I talked to a doctor later and they're like, no, I think that was part of that. I don't know how, like, I don't want to speak because I don't have the best memory, how accurate the blurred vision thing is, I guess. I'm also slightly on the spectrum. So when it comes to this, the auditory thing happens to me a lot, where like suddenly I have trouble hearing other things because I'm very focused on one thing. So I would say touch and sound would probably be the first things you would start to notice dampening. And if you notice that, think about what you're focusing on. It's really nice when you get there, because then you can actually, if you're focusing on something you want to focus on, it's very nice. And it's kind of the only way I can get through my life somehow, or some days. Yeah.
I noticed too that when people get that in that space, there's a disconnection to the body. So forget that you're hungry and thirsty and need to go to the bathroom.
Or you stand up and trip. I mean, of course, if you sit for too long, anyone's going to lose blood in their legs and they're going to get a little numb, but
yeah.
not a good way to diagnose. Oh yeah, my legs fall asleep a lot. Oh, you must have ADHD. No, no.
But just add it to a piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
Yeah. How about for you, Rachelle? Were you surprised?
It's so interesting that we're talking about hearing, because I feel like for mine was like the multi-stimulus of noise, like literally short circuits my brain. Like there is something that happens that I'm like, and it was beautiful. Like my children now, like getting to teach them, like that's what happens, and being able to regulate myself and knowing that that's something that's happening, and talking to people around me that that's going on has been such a big thing in learning about how, and like teaching my children like how we all have different ways of being. But I knew like it was beautiful and relieving to recognize that it was something, like actually seeing it written out was beautiful to actually be like, oh yeah, because that's exactly what happens. Like if I'm having multiple sounds, and like I said, I've got 5 kids, like that is very common. But it's also been beautiful when going like, if you're all talking at once, I can't actually hear any of it. Like literally I'm like, check, laters, see ya, out of here. My brain is scrambled, and I have to actually take some deep breaths and like come back and calm myself down to be able to hear, and like order them. They'd be like, okay, I'm gonna listen to you, and then we'll listen to you, and then, do you know what I mean? So it's been it was really relieving for me to understand that from a like biological level, and what's happening in my brain and all of those sorts of things at the same time, because I just felt like everything was too much all the time.
Yeah. Are either of you actually diagnosed?
Yes.
No, I'm not officially.
I'm officially diagnosed with OCD, ADHD, and like most likely on the spectrum, slight on the spectrum.
This is great. I love that we have one of each, because I am a firm believer that getting a diagnosis is not necessary unless you actually want it. So, Giaco, why did you choose to get diagnosed, and how has that experience been for you? And then Rachelle, why did you choose not to?
I chose to because, well, I guess the impetus was I had tried Adderall without a prescription at one point, and I really, really, really wanted to talk to a doctor and have someone who understood the situation better, that I could talk to them about it and get a hold of something. So I tried a bunch of stuff before Adderall ended up working, but Adderall ended up being the thing that was working. And now I take 2 break days a week, which is really nice. And I take like less than 10 milligrams of instance, which is pretty small, I've heard. So that was the impetus, but I also really wanted to just understand what the system would feed back to me. You know, I didn't want to go in there and say, oh, great, now I know what I am or who I am. Or I just wanted to hear the take of the system, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to understand what all these terms mean and be able to ask all those questions, and sit in a room with a doctor. And I mean, it took a while, and it probably would not have happened if Oregon didn't have good state health insurance for poor folk like myself. So part of the reason I did it was because I was able to.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
I love it. I really didn't have words for it for a long time, and it was only because my youngest daughter got diagnosed with ADHD, and so going on that learning journey where I was like, oh, that's how my brain works. Oh, that's how my brain works. Like, and seeing so much of how things happen. But for me, like functionally, I've done really well in my life. Yeah, things have been really overwhelming and crazy at times. I have just embraced who I am. And so the label for me, and I'm not interested in doing medication or anything. So the label for me is not necessary. Do you know what I mean? And but it was learning about it through my daughter's diagnosis that allowed me to really be like, oh, okay. So I can see why people do it for both ways. You know what I mean? Like it just depends on the situation. It's really a personal thing, right? Because for me, the label of it, like I have like a big rejection of it, and I think that's part of the reason why I haven't done it, because I'm like literally everybody I'm in the spiritual space, like it's a brain fucking upgrade. And the problem is being that like we can be hyper focused on the things we love and disregard all the shit that's unnecessary. Like if you tell me that's not an upgrade, like this is like fuck. And we have the opportunity to like see multiple things happening at once and then focus them through ourselves. Like it's wild. It's amazing what's actually happened as the evolution of our brains is going on, and why I'm kind of like reject the world is the scientific world, because it's been like, no, we don't fit in this box, and so therefore something's wrong. But it's actually like, no, the box is fucking wrong. And if we actually looked at ADHD of like, whoa, look at how our brains are evolving and growing and getting better at what we really need to do as humans, right? And getting like more focused on the shit that lights us up, and the other stuff is like less necessary. Like look at what's happening and how amazing it is. Let's study how fucking awesome it was. Like that would have been a game-changing experience. But there's so much like negative. Like when my daughter was diagnosed, the psychologist, I'm like, Kaya, you've got an upgrade in your brain. And the psychologist was like, we don't talk about it like that. And I've turned to her and said, I will be. And like she had a moment of like, oh, like, and I was like, don't fucking come to that. Like, yes, there's going to be side effects of everything, like everything. There's going to be challenges, but it's because the world isn't set up to meet her where she is, not the other way around.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because I feel like after I was diagnosed and doctors didn't have the question in their head if I had it or not, suddenly they spoke to me where, oh, okay, now I know how to communicate with you. And so there was a lot of support, but also I was, 29, 30, right? And I felt a lot of like positive feedback from it, especially with my OCD, that I hadn't really considered that as part of my equation. And when a doctor said, well, with these things that you do, these specific things that I got to see on a sheet, I'm like, oh, I do those things. I definitely do those things. He said, well, that is enough to define OCD. I'm like, okay, so it doesn't mean that I do this, 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 and this, and this, and this, and this. And then I'm able to say those things to my doctor, and then they'll know that every time I talk about anything. And it helped me, well, decrease those symptoms. All of the bad stuff that made it hard for me to focus or made me spend 5 hours in the morning before I was able to get anything done, that all started to go away within like 3 weeks after my diagnosis with OCD. So yeah, and it was good for me. It worked for me for sure.
Giaco, do you feel like this is a huge part of coming to where you are now, of like this love and acceptance?
Yeah.
Because even as you're talking, like, I feel like there was so much of me in resistance to who I was and the way that I did things, because of like the shame around like, oh, I can't organize things, and so I'm a really bad person because blah, blah, blah. But then understanding like that's just part of who I am has been this like beautiful, like, oh, okay, once I can be like, oh, well, I have this, so that's expected in what I've got. And then it's been like, oh, okay, so let me adapt the world around me to meet me because this is who I am.
Yeah. It's kind of like setting boundaries with people. You let them know what helps you live your life, and then they take it or leave it. And if they step over your boundaries, then you create more space. And if they respect your boundaries, then you allow them to get closer and you open up more. And to me, that was understanding that a lot of these diagnoses are based on specific symptoms. Help me understand that I'm part of the global community and part of these sub communities, and able to like feel less alienated because I'm sure that I have specific symptoms, which like you said, you could do your own research, you could see the diagnosis of your daughter, and that was enough that you went, oh no, I'm part of that sub community. And I'm able to communicate with those people and confidently say that I have ADHD, and this is how I function because of that. Yeah. Self-love for sure.
I love this so much because you both came to the same conclusion with different routes. And the decision to get diagnosed or not is so personal. And I get asked that all the time. People ask me that all the time, like, how do I get diagnosed? And I'm like, well, do you want to be diagnosed, first of all? Because some people get a lot of relief from just having that knowing. And some people are like, no, I don't need that label. And it really just depends on your journey and who you are and what you need. But this is a very clear, oh, I love this so much because this is a very clear indication that both routes are great. And it just depends on you and what you want and what you need. And that's that part of that learning to trust yourself thing that I teach people about all the time, because our society doesn't want us to trust ourselves anyways. Like that's just the bar. But then when you have neurodivergence, there's even more separation from that because you don't fit in the box. And so we're taught to not trust yourself so much. And so part of what I love to do is helping people reconnect to themselves and trust, like, okay, yes, I actually really, really want this diagnosis. Great, go do it. Actually, no, I don't need this diagnosis. Great, don't. Like either one, there's no right or wrong way to go on this journey of discovering and learning and understanding yourself.
I do want to add, there were times in my life where I decided not to pursue it. And I felt at that time that that was a good decision, and I still believe it. So it also depends where you are in your life.
Yes.
You yourself, it's not just good because you are you, or just bad because you are you. It might be good at the right time, or bad at the wrong time, or the right time, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Change your mind.
Regularly.
Yes.
You can regularly change your mind.
Okay. Last question. So for those of you who are watching for educational purposes and don't know this, ADHDers tend to have something called time blindness. If you happen to be a neurotypical person watching this, thank you so much for wanting to learn about neurodivergence for those people in your life, in your world. But time blindness is 2 minutes and 2 years are kind of the same thing. There really is no difference. Time doesn't really exist for somebody with ADHD, which is why they're late all the time, or forget X, Y, and Z, or don't remember your birthday because they don't know what fucking day it is. It is not a courtesy thing or whatever. And time is not a moral thing. I'm very passionate about this concept. Anyways, so Giaco and Rachelle, what ways have you navigated time living in a society that requires you to be aware of time, and when you struggle with being aware of time?
I remember like just actually accepting this part of myself and saying to my friends, like I have a lot of positive qualities, but on timeness is not one of them. So if you can accept that, then we can be great friends, because I have a lot to bring when I'm actually there. And often I'll be late when I'm there. And if you could remind me 4 or 5 times, that would be also great. Because because it's so true. And even remembering things or remembering when events were, like I have friends who are like, oh, you wore this dress on, you know, when we went out, and this, I'm like that is not something that happens in my world at all. And it's just, it's so interesting for me though, because there's certain areas of my life where I can be like on time all the time. And so it's just like so interesting how there's this different aspects of me. There's different areas, and yeah, like it's a very real thing that I get to have loving people. Jess is beautiful. She reminds me multiple times. I love the system of coming to this call of like we've had text messages and like messages just before, because it's beautiful and necessary in my life to have that. And it's just teaching people as well, like teaching my friends as well, that like it's not coming from a place of like forgetting because I don't care. Like I really genuinely care, but I also just, it's something that happens in my world. That's why going to the calendar for me is like this wild vortex of tangents, because it's time, and I'll look at one thing and be like, oh my god, I have to do this, this, and this for that. Let me go off on that direction. So yeah, I think it's just teaching people around you, which is why like having a label sometimes is really beautiful, because you can teach people and they're more understanding. And I was thinking that when you were both talking just before, like I know for my daughter in her learning, there's so much more understanding because of the diagnosis, which is wild to me, that we don't just understand everybody for where they're at and have the same level of like leniency and understanding because of the diagnosis. Like, why do we need to have a label for them to recognize there's stuff happening for a kid and then help them out? But yeah, that was my little side journey. I'm gonna
Thank you for sharing your side journey. I loved it.
I agree that letting people know and accepting certain aspects is just pretty much the way to go. I did get really lucky, like I said, once I got diagnosed with OCD, I started understanding it better. Part of OCD is obsession over a compulsion. So if my compulsion that I had already set up was to obsessively create and rewrite to-do lists, I just tailored that and managed it. I created the habit, and so the main habit I do is the two that I do that helps with time is manage my expectations and pad everything. So for instance, I have doctor's appointments. When I write it down in the on the calendar, I have like a timed calendar I used to have a physical calendar. So like I'd have these are each an hour, right? And let's say I had an hour doctor's appointment, I would put 2 lines above and 2 lines below, like that. So then if I had something here, I knew that I'd have to start it down here and I couldn't put it right after it. So I'd have some kind of, and then also like, does it take me an hour to get to work? Well, then it'll take me 15 minutes to get ready before work. So that means I need another 15 minutes of just padding. So I have 30 extra minutes that it takes me an hour and a half to get to work. And I do that with everything, but I have that gift of obsessively planning everything. And my last show and tell, I have one of these rotating timers, which is also reversed, but whatever. And it's magnetic, so I can stick it to like fridges and stuff.
my takeaway from this whole thing is to get small whiteboards and now a rotating timer.
And padding.
I literally padded this call. I was laughing because I padded this call, because also something that happens to me, Giaco, is if I put it in the calendar and I'll pad it, but then I think it starts at the beginning. So now I have to actually make sure I write like in the calendar thing what time it is.
Yeah, no, that's before I knew about OCD and for that part of my journey, I would do that and I would try to pad it, and then I'd show up 15 minutes early and then I'd start doing something else. And then I would forget the thing was happening. Yeah.
So
Bad.
something that I have been doing, I don't know if this will help you with, Shell, but I'll put the time of the event as the time, and then before it, I'll just put however much time and just put busy. So then they're not the same event, but I know this is my padding.
I definitely get to create a padding color
Yes.
in my, yes.
There you go. Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. Thank you both for being here today. I appreciate you being on this episode of the ADHD Roundtable. And something that I'm just going to share with everyone because it's coming up and through me right now is this is the 15th episode of the ADHD Roundtable that I've done. And I think this is the best one I have ever done. And I want to say that to everyone because it is I often say consistency is overrated. It is. But what does support is persistence. And oftentimes I watch people start doing things and then think that it's failing because it's not getting traction, especially when we talk about digital media. It's like, oh, it's not getting any views or likes or blah, 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 blah. But like, it takes this long to get good at the thing. And you need to do that in order to get the traction. And then once you get really good at it, then you can hold the capacity for more people to come in and see it and do the things. But until now, I haven't really had like it's been good. I know that the roundtables are good, but like the way that I'm being in it is so different because I'm not here looking at my list of questions and being nervous about what I'm going to say. Like I am just fully present in here and having an actual conversation because I know what this is about and I know how I want to be. And I'm not worried about all these extra 75,000 other things. And so I'm just at peace in it. And it has taken me 15 episodes to get here. So if you're on that journey of like doing the thing and you're like, oh my gosh, it's not good enough yet, or I'm still like struggling, blah, 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 blah. It takes a while to do that and to build it up. And so keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
That makes me, I feel like we're running out of time, so I don't know.
No, go ahead.
We should put this in the description once the video is done, if you can. It's called The Gap by Ira Glass. It's like a 2-minute audio recording, and
Okay.
I'll find the best version of the video for you if I can. But the gist of it is you get into something that you love because you have good taste. And as you start making stuff, you realize the thing you're making is not as good as it should be. It's not up to your par of taste. So you just have to make a bunch of bad stuff for like a while. And this is why any small business takes 3 years to make any money. You have to save money and put a loan in and put time in for at least 3 years, and then you'll start making income. And then you got to pay off all the loans, and then you'll actually start making income like 5 to 6 years after you start. So expect that. Manage your expectations. Go in expecting that. When you're not making money 2 years in, you're like, oh, wait, no, this is right. I'm good. This is how it's supposed to work.
I like to call it the walrus during the worm stage, Giaco, because when I try and do burpees at the gym, I look like a walrus trying to do the worm. But I know that I have to master that stage to ever get to the grasshopper that my PT does. But it's like, just keep being the walrus, man. Be the best freaking walrus you can.
My favorite part about that image is the idea of a walrus who's trying to do the worm. Its teeth would get stuck in the ground. So I'm imagining it on the sand, and it's fine because it's just going through the sand. And then it reaches some soil and it just gets stuck. It's just like,
That's the 2-year mark.
yeah.
That's the 2-year mark.
Oh, I love that you just said that. I am on 3 years now since I started doing ADHD coaching. 3 years will be in August. And so I just started tearing up, realizing that and how everything is feeling like it's starting to click together all of a sudden. It's really fucking cool. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for being here with me on that. Any of you who are watching, make sure you click on the things below to check out more of Rachelle and Giaco's stuff or mine if you resonated with any of us. We would love, 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 love to connect with you. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.